kids with their YouTubes and their avocado toast.
Okay, Boomer.
You kids don't know how good you have it.
Okay, Boomer. Hey, Dad, what's the Wi-Fi password? I need to know the Wi-Fi password.
Okay, Zoomer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. I am your host, Ghantt Chart, and with me is my co-host, Daddysquatch. Hello, Daddysquatch.
Hi, Ghantt Chart. How are you today?
Good. And as we're, approaching the summer season, I've been noticing that there was this trailer for a movie called Twisters that really got me thinking about, like, the old movie Twister, like how you got to see, Bill Paxton, and all those different kind of movies. And it made me think about, like, different movies that, we all watched and loved as a kid. Now, I'm kind of stealing this idea for the podcast episode from the Let Me Tell You About podcast series, which I will put a link to them down below because I am on their Discord. And they had an episode where they were talking about, like, different VHS movies that they watched and loved as a kid. But I think that we're going to take our spin on it by having, like, different movies, that we've watched throughout, from the point of view of a boomer versus the point of view of a zoomer. And maybe even talk a little bit about, the different ways that, we've watched movies, back in the day, like movie theaters, DVD stores, and all that, and then, modern day streaming services. So, I think Daddysquatch wanted to talk a little bit about, the different theater experiences. You wanted to tell me about this this magical thing. Oh, what was it? A drive-in theater?
Drive-in theater. Well, let's talk first about just regular theaters. I mean, when I was growing up, you got movies on either TV, which were chopped and edited for a time slot, but you got to see the movies. In fact, some nights it was a big thing that you'd run home, you'd make sure, and the whole family would gather around the TV to watch, a movie that was in the theater, but it's a big thing because they're playing it on TV, and we could make homemade popcorn, and we'd have Kool-Aid, and we'd sit there and we'd watch the movie, and we'd all be around the TV and
Kool-Aid?
stuff. What's that?
Kool-Aid?
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid? I thought you were gonna have, like, Tang.
Tang. Oh.
You can't escape Tang.
Tang. Well, yeah, unfortunately, I think the reason they dropped the name Tang is other references.
Oh.
And we're going to drop it right there. But,
Alright,
but to see a new release movie, you would, the local theater at that time, when I was growing up, it was a smaller theater. It's not the megaplexes you have today. It was one theater. And sometimes it's a double feature. But if it was a really special movie, you'd just pay for that one movie. So double features, they'd play two movies, so you'd actually get to see two for paying once. But
and I could be wrong, but I think this is actually where the term B movie comes from, because that's, you would have, like, the A movie, which would be, like, the good movie, and then you have the B movie, which is cheaply made, but they're just kind of, like, tack it on to it. It's like, yeah, it's low budget. You pay for what you get. There you go.
Yeah, and so, so for us to watch movies, you went to theaters, or you watch it on TV. Now, the fun part was during the summertime, they had drive-in theaters. Now, some parts south or whatever, they'd have drive-in theaters maybe year-round, but California, Texas, or whatever. When I was growing up, they had a drive-in theater. It was open during the summer, so it was kind of, you would go drive in them with a car, and you'd pay by the carload. Once you got inside, be in a big screen, but it was also another way to meet your friends, goof around, also get away with maybe some stuff in the theater you're supposed to, that you couldn't at the regular theater, but you could do at a drive-in theater car.
With yes, this is kind of like, but to be fair, I am happy to shout out the Let Me Tell You About podcast series, because they're funny, but I remember one of the podcast hosters, Tad, would talk about how I think he said it was like he's a child of like a single mother, and he had like a few brothers, and one of the things was that in order to sneak a couple kids to the drive-in theater, they'd have two of the kids hide under a blanket, so you'd have like maybe it's like, oh, you're paying for two, but really, you're sneaking in five people to watch a movie.
We all
Is
did.
it bad? But
Either you'd have a station wagon with a blanket in the back, or you'd have a car and you'd hide the trunk.
see, I've never done the drive-in movie theater, experience. My only experience with drive-in theaters is driving past them or driving past the old abandoned buildings. Or that scene from Twister where Twister ripped through one of the drive-in theaters while they're playing The Shining.
Yep, so... And I mean, a lot of those drive-in theaters, they didn't play the most recent movies, but sometimes they did. Mainly because they didn't play the most recent or the big blockbusters was you could watch the screen. You didn't hear the sound, but you could still kind of watch the movie for free and stuff. But there's still drive-in theaters in the state, so one of these times guide you to you want to do the drive-in theater experience. I always got a kick was the intermission, and the intermission had the food dancing because they wanted you to go to the concession stand. See, most theaters, whether it's regular theater or drive-in theater, they don't make much money on showing the movie because they got to pay for rights and all that stuff as much as they make money on the concessions. So when they show a movie, they make a little bit of money. When they sell food, they make a lot of money, and they charge a lot of money. But that's the whole experience. Going to the drive-in theater was the horrible snack food, the cheesy sounds. If your friends were there, other people were there, you kind of, if it's a bad movie, you get together, you clown around a little bit. Occasionally, you get to watch the movie, but just good excuse to get out.
See, when you said the word intermission, all I could think of was the intermission music from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Well,
that?
They had intermission between the A movie and the B movie. So they would have, maybe they play cartoons, maybe they just have music, they turn on the lights, let people go to the concession stands, but usually about a 15-minute intermission. Also a good excuse to make a dash for the bathroom.
Yes.
Stuff. But here's where kind of things change. So this is the thing then. And when I was getting older, we had moved to the new state, and my brother.
We'll just call the place that we live in. We'll call it Bean because it's a state of being. Bean. Okay, that was lame. I gotta edit that out. No. I'm putting it in there.
Oh, I don't care. But what I'm saying is that he brought over and this at this time was state of the art, a laser disc player. And the disc was probably about 12 to 14 inches in diameter. It was a big disc, but you'd put it in and then, oh my God, you got to watch movies right there. And I mean, these were movies that weren't too old and you could rent them. You go down to a store and they would have different rentals of these laser discs. It was kind of exciting, Get back together, the family. We get to watch a movie, you'd see this one movie when you were a kid or a recent one like Jaws. We'd watch Jaws like, I think, 10 times before we took the disc back. I think we watched it. But it was fun because, we saw it in the theater, but you didn't see it again. Then you saw it on TV a couple years later, but it was chopped, it was edited. Some of the scenes, you didn't get to see the blood, the gore, or whatever. And then you got the laser disc, and there was it was just amazing. That you could sit there and rent a movie that you wanted to see, bring it home and enjoy it, for a certain amount of time. But
Or you could also buy it, which how much did Laserdisc cost back then?
I don't know. I can't remember, but here was the big thing. Then it came down to a tape machine. Now they'd had them, but now they were really starting to get mass produced. But they had two different types of tape machines back then. They started out. They had the VHS, but they also had the Betamax. Now, a Betamax tape was a little more compact, and it was a little higher quality than VHS. And it was made by Sony. Sony got greedy, whereas whoever did the initial VHS, they licensed it to a whole bunch of people. So all these different other companies were building VHS machines, and they became cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Whereas the Betamax was still expensive. I think they maybe let one other company use the Beta, but then it got, it never got cheaper. And then people were like, and then these stores had to carry VHS and Betas, and pretty much with the tapes, they all said, there's not that many people that rent Betamax because they're expensive. We're just going to do VHS. Goodbye, Betamax. So Betamax, that was one thing Sony learned was you got to be careful with your technology. You have to license it if you want to be competitive. And you'll find out that Blu-ray versus, I forget what the other one was. There's two different...
DVD?
No, it was DVD, but then they came out with Blu-ray, but there was another version of Blu-ray, and Sony did the same thing again, and Blu-ray won out again. So that's why it's the next generation.
Is there really any difference between Blu-ray and DVD?
Yes.
I've watched both of them, but I didn't really feel like there was much of a difference. Then again, I'm a mindless consumer. I'm the embodiment of the consumer meme, if anyone remembers that.
If you take a look at the movies, then it went from VHS. They were still VHS, but it was the music. They had the CD. So the CD was a compact disc, and that was for music at the time. But you got a lot of music on a disc. It was a lot smaller, an album. Plus, it was a lot more durable than tape. So that really kind of changed. Now, the whole thing of CD, DVD, Blu-ray is the laser. So in a CD, it was like an infrared laser. DVD is a red beam laser. And then Blu-ray is a blue beam laser. The thing is, as the wavelength increased, is that right? Get shorter or does it get longer? I don't know. As you go up the color spectrum, basically is from infrared, it was at one end of the spectrum, Blu-ray is at the other end. As you migrated to blue, you could carry more data in the same space. So by doing that data, that's why compact disc couldn't do a video, whereas DVD could do a video because you had a different laser, versus DVD, you could do better sound, better quality of the movie because you can carry more digital information. And how about that? Physics lesson for today.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. And
but
now...
go ahead.
And now, the DVDs are slowly, they're still around, but they kind of replaced the VHS tapes, and now DVDs are slowly getting replaced, and I put replaced in air quotes, by streaming services, because I still think DVDs have a purpose, which I'll discuss later on, which, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's the thing. It was just going to segment into DVDs are starting to disappear. I've had Redbox. I think that's about the only place you can really rent DVDs and stuff. They're disappearing. I haven't seen a new movie in the Redboxes near us in months. And it's kind of like, that was kind of my way of getting a new movie was either get it through Redbox. It was still cheaper to rent from Redbox than it's to get through streaming. See, I guess my big thing, Ghantt Chart over the years is I've watched enough movies that I don't want to waste my time on bad movies. So if I rent a movie for $1 or buy DVD, I'll watch and I give it 20 minutes. If it doesn't catch me in 20 minutes, it's like click, and I'll take it back. It's like, I took the investment. And there's been a lot of movies I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I thought this was good. Click. And then there's things I thought were, no, I'll never watch that. Next thing you know, I'm buying the series, We won't speak of Game of Thrones.
The reason why I buy DVDs is because, I don't like the fact that, and I hear people talk about with streaming services that, in many ways, it's a nightmare to try to use streaming services to watch series. Like, for example, I remember one YouTuber, I forget his name, talked about, like, if you want to watch the entire Pokemon series, and he talked about how he had to bounce between different streaming services to get, like, seasons 1, 2, and 3, and then for, seasons 4, he'd have to go to this streaming service, then I'd have to bounce again for season 5, and then this other obscure streaming service. It's just a ton of money, and nobody can, nowadays nobody can afford, 50 million streaming services. So as a result, I'm joining what I like to call the physical media revolution, where it's sort of an idea of I buy it, I own this copy, you can't take it away from me, it's whatever I want to, have for it, because ultimately,
I agree.
because ultimately I'm slowly, I'm slowly starting to resent, streaming services and just how many there are. I just want to get the, the stuff I want.
Well, and seeing what you can do is, you're doing it now, but I go to pawn shops. They have a section
Yeah.
of DVDs and stuff, and they're usually $1 a piece. And you go through there. I could go through there every time I visit the pawn shop. I get 6 to 10 DVDs. Get them. A movie ticket costs you, I don't know what it costs, 15, $20 go to see a movie now with popcorn and all that. And maybe I'm underestimating it too, but I mean, you watch one movie, or you can get 10 to 15 movies, and they're yours. Like I said, you can get a library, and pretty soon, you can have this such, if you want to watch a movie, I've got it. And that one-time payment, it's done. Take good care of them. Whether it's tapes, DVDs, Blu-ray or whatever, it's a physical means of owning the movie. I mean, now, granted, the quality of VHS versus Blu-ray is different, but, at the end of the day, some people get, the quality of the sound has to be just perfect. I'm like, I just want to get the idea of the movie and watch the stuff, Doesn't have to be perfect.
Or if you're, if you really are okay with, like, spending a little bit more, but, to get more access, widen your net a little bit to catch more fish, as they would say, you can always go. What I usually do is go to, like, Walmart and go into, like, those $5 DVD boxes,
Sure.
Sometimes you could get 2 movies for $5, like, that's how I got the Shawshank Redemption and the Green Mile. They were, on the same DVD for $5.
Right, and then there's 2 good movies, and I know that, really wanted to, this is where I get old kids' Disney's flicks for grandkids, is we go on to eBay. Yeah, it costs
Okay.
$5 for, it's an old thing, and I feel bad because we had the VHS copies when you kids were growing up. And you guys would play
Yeah.
those over and over and over and over again. I think we went through a couple tape players and tapes, but each one of you had your favorite movie or show that you liked watching, and again, that's something that you go on. Like I said, you go on Marketplace, you can go on eBay or whatever. You can find the movies, or you find somebody that's got a big pile of them, or garage sales or whatever. I mean, just drive by. Oh, there's a pile of DVDs. Takes you 5 minutes to stop. Go over there, peruse what they got. You might find 5 or 6 good movies. Throw them a $5. Away you go.
So you've watched a lot of movies, through VHS and DVDs and sort of that sort of stuff, and I think, as you peruse all the different movies, you talk about, like, with the 20-minute rule, but isn't there a movie at least that, yeah, it's bad, but it's funny? Like, it's enjoyable bad? Like, don't you ever encounter
You mean like
one of
Guilty?
those?
Guilty Bad?
Yes.
You really want to know what my Guilty Bad movie is? I don't know. I think I should say it.
I'm guessing it's a giant spider invasion.
Oh, that I'd say all day long. I love that movie. Not because I was in it, but I was in it. I love that
Yes,
movie because that epitomizes a B movie.
Yes, you were a extra in the B movie, and
Running for that spider. Ooh, scary spider, scary.
and the fact that you had the the skipper from Gilligan's Island,
Oh
played
yeah,
the sheriff.
yeah.
He
And
was the
here's
guest star.
yeah,
But how
but
can you have a guest star in a movie?
he was like, there was like some uh, she was the secretary of Perry Mason. She played in there. I've seen I've been seeing a couple of those actors in different shows or whatever. So I mean, it pulled in some movies, but it was amazing how little they spent for that movie, how bad it was. But yet, the year it was released, I think, the same year as Jaws. It came in like it was up there, especially drive-in theaters, because people were like, "Oh, the great," It was kind of a cult movie and stuff. And it's a bad movie, but if you really watch it, go to YouTube and watch the Mystery Science Theater version of the Giant Spider Invasion, because the commentary, along with the movie, it just makes it even better.
I mean, all I could think of with all those actors that were in those movies, all I could think of is like Bela Lugosi in an Ed Wood movie. How it's like it's the end of his career and he's like, man, I was in some pretty good stuff and now I have to star in this.
But I need the money.
Yeah.
That's what they get to. Um,
Heroin isn't cheap. Oops, did I say that out loud?
what's that?
Heroin isn't cheap.
Oh, probably the guilty pleasure movie was, and my buddy, and I always talk to my childhood friend. He got me into so much trouble. It made me do so many different things in my life that I didn't want to do, but he really got me out of my shell and stuff. He said, "Come on, let's do it. Let's just go out and do it." No, I'll get in trouble. Yeah, we will. Let's go. you know, but he's like, well, there's this movie down here, and it's supposed to be really good. It's supposed to be that. I said, what's that? They said, oh, let's go down there. And I'm like, Rocky Horror Picture Show? What is this?
Now, I haven't watched that movie, but I've heard from people it's a cult classic.
It's a cult. I mean, it's out there, and it's got some, lead actors in it. But I mean, Susan Sarandon's in there. Tim. Oh, I can't remember his last name. He's in a lot of movies. But if you watch the movie, there's a lot of actors in there. Didn't see, but it was unique. It's a very unique movie. Let's just put it at that. Had some catchy tunes in there and stuff, but it just was one of those unique movies. I mean, Meatloaf, who was a big rock and roll singer during the 70s, he sings in that. It's funny. So yeah, one of these nights you gotta go try watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show. A lot of people say, yep, you'll see him in the theater throwing toast or cheering on the crowd. So
there is a movie that actually has like a similar cult following where people would have traditions for it, and people also call it a "it's so bad it's good" movie. And
what's
that movie, I don't know if you've heard about it, Daddysquatch. Have you ever heard about The Room?
No.
Oh, The Room is such an amazing movie. It's so legendary. It was made by this actor slash director slash producer, Tommy Wiseau, and it has this great acting. You can tell that it's so high quality because there's green screen effects literally everywhere, and the actors, they have really bad lines like, I did not hit her, it's not true, it's bullshit, I did not hit her, I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. But it's this movie that has like a cult status to it. Like, yeah, there's a lot of traditions when watching the movie. Like, for example, in the entire movie set, this is an actual true story. The people who were in charge of like setting up pictures, because like you have to get like pictures and paintings for the set, they got lazy and just bought a bunch of pictures of spoons. And as a result of that, there's a tradition where whenever people see this movie in theaters, they will grab plastic spoons and throw them at the screen. Or how there's a tradition you have to play football with the person next to you because there's a lot of scenes of people just tossing footballs to each other.
So this sounds very similar to like what you'd see in Rocky Horror Picture Show. So Ghantt Chart, I think what we have to do is we'll have a bad movie playoff. You bring the room. I'll find a copy of Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Okay.
and we'll watch one, then we'll watch the other, and we'll go boo. We'll have a good
Although
laugh.
although I'll do you the favor of fast forwarding through the sex scenes in the room.
Okay, there's Rocky Horror is kind of close to, but not really too much sexy. But
But I
anyway,
feel like that because I wanted to do at least a movie from my childhood that I remember that was bad, but I'm seeing people as like a guilty pleasure kind of thing. And there is one movie that I can think of. I remember seeing
Titanic.
it on VHS once. What did you say?
Titanic.
No. This is like a movie where people are like, it's so bad, it's good.
Titanic.
Now, no.
No.
It's a different movie. I'm talking about a different movie. And yes, I did watch Titanic a lot as a kid. I was a history nerd. I was obsessed with the Titanic sinking. But mom and dad did not let me watch the sex scene. They just fast forward to like when the iceberg hits the ship. That's how I watched it. But anyways, the movie that I was talking about is The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I can tell by the silence that you are just processing what I just said.
Wasn't there like a TV or a movie that was like was a spin-off of? Oh, I'm trying to remember the name. It was
But
like
I think there was like a sequel of it. You might be talking about it where it's like, okay, let's be superheroes or something.
well, it's
Anyways,
like a brother and a sister were like trying to save
Spy
their parents.
Kids. Spy
Spy
Kids.
Kid, yeah, it was like a spin-off of that, right?
It was made by the same director, but no, it's not a spin-off from that. But the premise of The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl is that if you watch the plot, you're thinking like this is like something that a kid would write. And the truth is, it is. In fact, the director Rodriguez had his son write the entire plot to the movie, and the plot is just so nonsensical. Like, I'm gonna try to sum up the plot in the shortest trope
All right.
possible. So apparently, this kid has like dreams, and he dreams of these two superheroes. One named Shark Boy and one named Lava Girl. And it turns out that through the power of dreaming, he's able to bring them into real life. And they come to him during a tornado scene. They have to bring him to the planet, planet Drool, where all dreams are real. And, where they have to fight George Lopez, who plays Mr. Electric. And it's just this really insane, nonsensical plot. And you could tell that the movie was cheaply made because the CGI looks like the kind of CGI you would have seen like in the mid to late 90s. Like really cheaply made CGI. I can respect Rodriguez for being a grassroots director, but it is cheap.
Oh, okay. Well,
Like you could tell the whole movie was made on a green screen.
all right. Well, now tell me this, Gannett Chart. What movie did you actually really want to look forward to watch or caught you off guard? And in what media did you see it in?
A movie that I was looking forward to, based on, are we talking like, I saw the promos and I'm like, I want to watch this.
Yeah, so you could do that, but I mean, and then where did you see it?
I would have to go with the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, and I think the first time I watched it was on DVD.
So we watched it at home.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So was there any movie that you looked forward to maybe going to the theater, seeing it on the big screen?
Oh, a movie that I was looking forward to on the big screen.
You
There was
really
one.
excited about, or caught you off guard? You didn't expect it to be that good, but it was fantastic.
Okay, so one movie that I did remember going to the theaters, trying to be excited for it, because I remember like the rule that you and mom would have is that if I cleaned my room, which again my room was typically very messy. I was an 8-year old boy. What do you expect? If I got the place cleaned up, you guys would reward me. If I did it without you guys asking me, you guys would reward me by taking me to a movie theater. And I remember that there were two different movies, but I'm gonna pick one of them, to not make it that whole thing, and I would have to go with Monsters versus Aliens.
Okay. Do you like that movie?
It was okay. Like, so the premise of Monsters versus Aliens is it's an animated movie that tries to like you could very much tell that they were influenced by a lot of the sci-fi Silver Age movies. The idea of Monsters versus Aliens, and if you'll be interested in the plot, is that aliens have decided to try to invade Earth. It's that classic 1950s plot line, but the United States government has to come up with a way to fight them. So what the government decides is they get a bunch of aliens, or not a bunch of aliens, a bunch of monsters from like various different, the kind of monsters you would expect from various 50s B movies. You have a giant moth creature. You have an obvious creature from the Black Lagoon stand-in, a half human, half Ant Man, and then a giant woman. And the idea is that we're going to use these monsters to fight the aliens, and that there will be battle scenes and all that.
Okay. But I mean, you've told me that you got to go to the theater and watch an okay movie, but what I'm getting at, was there a movie that you wanted to see and that you were just amazed, surprised with? It was an excellent movie experience that you
So
got to
it,
see in the theater.
I'm trying to think of like a movie that was excellent. I would say, if I'm thinking back like really hard, I would say that an amazing movie would have to be Finding Nemo, mostly because seeing it for the first time was pretty awesome. Although I've kind of gotten burned out from Finding Nemo because of all the times I've watched it over and over and over again as a kid. You know what I mean?
But I mean, the very first time you saw it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. The first time was amazing. The couple of times where we were watching that movie while we were, having Thanksgiving dinner with one of our uncles, we won't mention which, it was pretty nice. Seeing it with during friends during a sleepover, it's like, okay. And then I think as an adult, like, I'll still watch it, but I'm kind of burned out. I mean, you've had a few movies yourself, Dad, where you've watched it multiple times, you're kind of burned out.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
but
you told me that you got burned out on Back to the Future Part 3.
yeah, yeah, I did. Back to Future One also. I've seen it enough times and stuff, but I mean, for me, I guess my movie or whatever, which had caught me completely off guard. And it was interesting. I used to work at a theater putting up the marquee. I remember going to my manager at the theater and I said, "What do you want me to put up this week?" He'd always give me the name of the movie or if it's a double feature, whatever, and then I would arrange the letters and all that stuff. And oh, by the way, I wasn't very good at spelling, but I made sure I learned to spell the theater thing. I would even run to a dictionary and stuff because nothing is more embarrassing than when you put a marquee up on a theater and you misspell a word.
Okay. Well, I mean,
But
to be fair, sometimes they spell it theater, with like,
no, no, no,
I
no,
don't know.
no. What I'm saying is when you put the name of the movie and you misspell the name of the movie, it's like, oh, I guess I think it was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So I put up the marquee for that, and I instead of spelling it THIRD, spelled
Oh.
THRID. Thread.
Oh.
Aliens of the thread kind. And people
Close encounters of the thread kind.
it's like people said, "Hey, good spelling, good." Wait, what? I went back down to the theater the next night, got the ladder out, changed the letters, which is always a pain and stuff. But no, probably the movie there. My manager gave me the thing and he said, "Put this up," and it was Star Wars. I said, "Star Wars? What the hell, Star Wars?" What? I put it up, and it was the big letters. It was huge. It was on the marquee, and you couldn't believe the lines of people that stand to watch this movie. Holy cow! And at that time, I think I got paid like I think maybe $10 a week to do this twice a week. So about $5 a night or to work. But one of the big perks was I got to go watch any movie I wanted free except for the X-rated ones. And in those days, X-rated movies were actually played in the normal theater. So who knew?
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, where else are you going to get porn? You know,
Yeah.
the internet wasn't around back then.
Well, they had special little theaters, but some of the theater adult movies would make it to your traditional thing. But I remember the manager, I said, "Hey, what's with the Star Wars thing?" He said, "Yeah, you might want to go in and watch this. It's kind of different." And so I went in, watched it, and called my brother up after him. Said, "Get your ass down here. I'll get you in the theater. You got to see this thing." And it wasn't that, the acting in it was good. It wasn't. And it wasn't that, they were actors you knew by, I think, except for Alec Guinness. You're kind of like, well, whatever. But you've been watching sci-fi movies, and they were never very good as far as special effects or the planets or the color. I think it's black and white and stuff. And you come into this thing, it would have that opening scene of one of the freighters being chased by the big Death Star, well, not Death Star, but Star Destroyer thing, over a planetscape, and it looked just like it was real. Watching it, I'm like, how did they do it, And it was the first time you really got how far you could go with special effects. Really make, a special movie. So that was the one that really caught me off guard was Star Wars. Now, granted, what really caught me off guard after watching Star Wars was everything with Star Wars for that year. Your McDonald's treats, gas station toy.
Well, I mean, it's like that bit from Spaceballs. We got Spaceballs breakfast cereal, Spaceballs a T-shirt, Spaceballs a flamethrower.
Yeah, everything with Star Wars toys. They had a Christmas special with it. That was bad. So, oh, by the way, it still exists. People on YouTube, if you're really a Star Wars fan, I double challenge you to watch a Christmas special for Star Wars. It's something that'll maybe quell that Star Wars bug that you've got.
Okay, I have to ask. You've watched a lot of, how would you rank the Star Wars holiday specials to modern day Star Wars? Like, which is worse? Like, if you had to choose between watching any of the sequel trilogy or the holiday special, what would you pick?
I think I'd do the holiday special. I'm sorry, the first 3 Star Wars that they made or that they watch, which is, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and I forget what the Return of the Jedi, whatever. Those are the best because they weren't taken seriously.
And then you had
but
the prequel trilogy, which you didn't like because I think there was a lot of political stuff involved with it, or
no, it was bad. They had good actors, good special effects, all that. It was just they took it seriously. They tried to make it serious. That wasn't Star Wars. Star Wars was not serious. That's the whole point of it. It was stupid, quickie, campy, space cowboy kind of a movie. But as soon as it got to the next 3 and the following 3, oh my God. You got to bring in grade A actors. We got to bring in all the special effects. They're going to be done on the music and everything, the storyline and all this. It wasn't fun. It was interesting to watch. You have a storyline, but it wasn't fun. The first 3 Star Wars were fun to watch. It was sarcasm. There was bad acting and whatever, but they were fun. After that, it was like, it's no fun. That's kind of ruined Star Wars for me. I watched each one of those once, and that was it.
I mean, that's the reason why now this was a movie I watched later on, but it does come from like that, VHS DVD era, was Suburban Sasquatch. I know you hate Suburban Sasquatch, but I will stand by my word that is a fun movie to watch. It's weird, it's goofy, it's stupid, and the acting is terrible, but it is a riot to watch. It's funny.
If you want to watch a good Sasquatch movie, you got to watch Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest. The Expedition.
Sasquatch, The Legend of Bigfoot. Yeah, I think we talked about that one in a previous podcast episode. I think that movie is like 90% camping adventure and 10% Bigfoot.
Perhaps.
Why not just take the helicopters all the way to the base, Dad? Why do they take the horses, all the way out to the Pecatoe? Couldn't they just take the helicopters?
All right. Well, if we're gonna do that, I'm gonna ruin the game Lord of the Rings trilogy. They walked all the way here to 3 movies to get from the Shire to the volcano. Okay, and yet when they get off the volcano, it's the eagles. So why did Gandalf say, "Hey, eagle buddies, come here, fly us to the volcano. We're gonna drop the ring in, and we'll call it good." Think of all the people that died while they were trying to get there. Versus, you could have just taken the birds, flown in there, dropped the ring.
I'm sure there's a reason. I'll have to watch the movies at some point. I'll add that to my list.
You've never seen Lord of the Rings? Oh my goodness.
There's a list of movies that I haven't seen yet.
You shot Titanic.
Yes. Now, what is a movie? Now, here's a question that I have for you. What is a movie where, it's like a popcorn flick. Like, you were talking about, like, movies where the acting's not necessarily, where it's still kind of fun to watch, where it's like a true popcorn flick. Because there is one movie that I can think of.
This one it's got a lot of good actors in it, but it's definitely popcorn. It's probably one of my favorite things to sit down and watch. I mean, I can plop down and watch it. I've got, I would say, 3 serious movies that I could sit down anytime and watch, but this one here is not a serious movie, and it's fun to watch. Mars Attacks.
See, the movie that I had on my mind is like a fun popcorn movie. Yeah. It's more serious, but it was made around the same time, and it is also an alien invasion movie, and I was going to say Independence Day.
Yeah, but Mars Attacks has got the humor that is hilarious. I mean, Independence Day was trying to be a little bit more serious, but Mars Attacks, all the actors in there are like, how can I get a role that I looks, I mean, Jack Nicholson, the guy he's hilarious, You got all the different actors in there. Michael J. Fox.
Jack Nicholson as the president.
Yep. Well, I mean, Jack Black was in there. Who else? I mean, you get that up there, and every actor and actress that was in there. Natalie Portman was in there.
Tom Jones.
Oh, God, yeah, Tom. One of these times you're going to have to tell your joke. Or play the story, the joke.
Well, that's that Tom Maloney skit. You
should tell people to watch that one.
Look up Salt and Pepper Diner. Look up the John Maloney Salt and Pepper Diner skit. That you'll know what I mean. It's pretty funny.
It's hilarious. We at this point right now, it's at a certain. If we're driving together, we go through a certain area, we have to listen to that. That's just our thing now.
Yeah.
But
so I imagine that, obviously, sitting there with the family and watching movies together, it can be kind of experience. What was the one movie that, as kids, that we were like, Mommy, Daddy, we want to watch this one, and you're just internally groaning, it's like, I don't want to watch this one.
SpongeBob movie.
I mean, that was a good movie, but I know you're just like, I don't want to watch this.
Let's put it this way. It's hilarious because I work with people of your age and stuff, and they are amazed at all the different SpongeBob stuff I could pull out and put reference to, and they're like, "Oh my god, that's from SpongeBob! How'd you know that?" I use my imagination.
I mean, I can understand how you feel sometimes. I mean, I'm not gonna say that this movie, is necessarily bad, but I could definitely tell it wasn't made for me, it was made for my nieces, and that would have to be Frozen.
Oh god, yes.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that movie. Like, I'll tolerate it.
Well, I think they like it one because sisters, but face fact, your niece is my granddaughter. They love to dress up, love to run around their little outfits, and they fight over tiaras, and it's fun to watch.
True.
So I guess when we're sitting there and we got these movies for your kids, it helped us as far as, you come around and we'd be getting dinner prepped, or it was after you got your homework done. It's like it's a nice little relax and stuff. But your mom made me watch the cartoons with the kids because she hates cartoons, and I did like cartoons.
I mean, that thought was kind of shocking because I always imagine like there's a lot of animated movies that Mom likes, that Mama Penguin likes. I mean, after all, she did she would watch a lot of kids movies with us.
The kids movies, yeah, but I mean like just cartoon. But I consider
Yeah.
15, 20-minute cartoon. She did that stuff, but again, I mean,
Yeah.
it just you take a look at the medias or the mediums you have, the selection you have here, as far as movies. It's compared to what it was when I was a kid. It's a quantum leap. I mean, it's really so many different ways you can watch a movie, whether it's on your phone, your laptop, TV, big screen theater. We never had that when I was growing up. Either big screen downtown or the little screen at home.
You damn kids, you don't understand how life was. We would wanted to watch TV, we'd have to turn a crank, and then all the power would go out in the neighborhood, and we were lucky if the picture could bring in Gilligan's Island.
Damn right. Oh god. You bring up Gilligan's Island. My mom's most hated show. We were growing up because it was an after school show, they'd show Gilligan's Island, Andrew Genie, but it was always like, from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock or 3:30 to 5 o'clock until they had news. They'd have these shows. Of course, watching Gilligan's Island, same rerun, 20 millionth time, and we're all, oh my god, it's Gilligan's Island. You just see my mom like, cringe. She's like, I can't understand why they can't get off that stupid island. Well, how would you get off, Bob? Can you make a coconut battery?
I mean, less of that. I do know that the main argument that, my grandmother, your mom had was if you're smart enough to build a radio out of coconuts, why aren't you smart enough to just build a boat and get off the island?
Well, they tried a couple of times, but you gotta have nails. And those didn't work. And then they tried glue. That didn't work. Face factory, you get off that island, you had to build a raft, and you had to hope you get the sea lanes. So, I was wondering if they ever found out where they were navigation-wise. Was the professor that smart?
I mean, I've heard, that there was, a series finale where they did manage to get off the island, but then they got stuck on the island again.
No, well, they deserve it. Okay, all I just want to know is for a 3-hour cruise, how come Howl's got money, they got clothes, they got dresses, they got all this other shit that you're kind of like, I don't think I'd take that on a 3-hour. But we digress.
Yeah,
But
digress.
that's the
So
fun part of the show. You could digress. But
yeah,
I would say, like I
so
said, I'm always impressed that hey, even today I want to watch a movie. I can pull up something on my phone. I can watch video clip or whatever. But I think as this keeps going on with the different mediums, I'm excited to see what they're going to do next in streaming. But you're right. The one thing I don't like about streaming is each movie theater or whatever, or not movie, but movie producing company like Paramount or Universal or Sony or Amazon or Netflix. They all got streaming videos, but they don't have an archive. It'd be nice to have one thing that had the master library. Everything you wanted at one place, at one price.
true. True. It would be nice to have something like that instead of constantly having to, have 50 plus, subscriptions. I don't have subscriptions, but I do like, as I mentioned before, get, a movies. I'm trying to build like a collection of movies and DVDs and TV shows. I mean, I've got a pretty sizable collection. I feel like that if the apocalypse hits, I would have enough money or have enough movies to watch. It's just a case of getting the electricity. And I just keep building and building that library.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, what would be the one movie? Okay, how about this for another question? What is the one movie that if every single copy of it just disappeared, like was just destroyed, you'd be like, oh, thank God.
Hmm. I don't think I have a movie like that. There's a lot of movies I like, but none that I just have to see. One, there was a couple that I'm flipping through the channels. If I see it, I usually will stop and I will watch it. Guaranteed. Like the two movies would be Goodfellas and The Godfather 1. And I just enjoy watching them.
I think for me it's Jurassic Park, but, the first three movies, because they're I'm obsessed with, dinosaur movies and stuff like that, obviously, like, and I think that's another thing that I think a lot of people kind of forget is all the Land Before Time sequels, and you're thinking, like, Daddysquatch, you remember the Land Before Time?
Oh, God, yes.
How many movie sequels do you think that movie has?
20,000.
14. Or actually 13. There are 13 sequels to that movie. I think, and I'm actually quite surprised it went all the way from like 1988 to 2007, and then there was like a hiatus, and then they're like, oh, by the way, we're gonna have a new one. It didn't make that much money, so I think that's kind of the final nail in the coffin.
Oh, the comet finally hit, thank God.
You're like, oh, thank God, finally, you're gonna do what we did to.
This is one thing that is good to have the convenience of the movies, but it's also bad because you can watch things over and over again, make sequels and all that, and then you get kind of burned out from it. I mean, probably my most favorite movie was as a kid, and I can access it anytime now once I've got it and stuff. But when I was a kid, this was such a special movie for me, and I always wanted to watch. And I saw it in the big theater, and it just was, to me, it was amazing, at that time. It was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Walt Disney version. That's before Walt Disney turned into what it is today, but back then it was amazing. Just to watch the submarine, and sailing, and the beast, and the big evil squid coming up, natives on the island trying to kill them, It had good actors in it, and it was a well done movie. Um,
As
I liked
opposed
it.
to, with the 90s, how, I mean, a lot of people call the 90s, the early, like the Disney Renaissance when Disney got back on its feet again. But then nowadays, like, I feel like there hasn't been a good Disney movie in a while, or just one that I'm like, oh, yeah, I would like to, put aside some time and watch the movies. There hasn't been a lot. I know I'm not the target audience, but still.
Well, I know there was one we watched with uh, granddaughters or nieces. I forget what it was, but it was something with dreams. It had a guy that went,
Wish.
what's that?
Wish. Is it
Wish,
that
yeah.
one
That was horrible.
where
That was just a rotten, horrible, poorly done. Now I could see from Frozen. Okay, I'm not a big. I watched Frozen. And I said, okay, I could see why that one was popular. Wish was like, I wish it would go away. That's always with the movie. I wish it would go away. Nope, it's still there. Maybe it's gone. No, it's still there.
I mean, have you listened to some of the reviews that people have made for Wish? Like, I remember reading some really funny reviews where it's like, so Disney celebrates its 100-year anniversary by having the first ever movie completely created by computers.
Okay.
And I don't mean like they animated with computers. I mean the music was generated by computers, the story was written by computers. Like it was all just anime or AI generated.
Well, that was Wish,
Like,
right?
yeah, that was Wish. But
Oh,
then people are just
I've
like
got
the
an
story
axe right
is.
here. Let's go find that computer. Kill it! Kill it! Kill it! Kill it! You know, I'm waiting for this technology to hit, and you were there. But a friend of mine from high school worked at YouTube and Google, and we were out there. I was doing work for the company, and Penguin, Ghantt Chart got to come out there, and he gave us a grand tour of Google headquarters. And this is really before Google Maps was really kind of taken to where it is today, where you can almost look at a lot of places from street view. But he took us into this main area, this viewing thing, and you could pick any place on the planet. And the way the screens are put, it was like you would take the center console and you would go to this place on the planet, and then there you were. And I think at that point we were at the Eiffel Tower. He said, well, let's take a look at the Eiffel Tower from this view, then we'll walk around it. And we literally walked around the Eiffel Tower, and I was just, and it was like the graphics were amazing. It's almost like you were there. Plus the screens were so big, they were encapsulated, so it looked just like you were there. And I'm like,
I mean, they have created like VR technology to kind of do something like that, and they have made it for commercial use. And I have seen people try to replicate scenes from movies. Like I saw one person replicate the bus scene from My Neighbor Totoro in VR, and that's pretty impressive. Seeing people do stuff like that. But then you see people use the technology in interesting ways, we'll call it. I don't know if I want to open that can of worms today.
yeah, let's see that I can. You already got there, so I mean we get the point. But I would say VR, maybe that's the next generation where you're actually maybe even part of the movie. You're a character in the movie. You could say, "Oh, I want to be this character or that character," but you get to kind of look through their eyes and be involved in scenes. I see that as coming up soon.
I mean, technically that's already happened if you want to get involved in like the Telltale Walking Dead series where you played as one of the characters and you made choices that affected the story, but I understand what you mean because they tried, but it's often a joke that the choices that you do make in the story are pretty hollow.
Well,
But I am looking forward to seeing something that could actually do something like that. Like, maybe something like Detroit Become Human, where they tried to have, you could affect the story in different ways. Maybe that'll be the future of movies.
well, let's put it this way: once they've figured out how to do that, make it so you feel you're in a different world. AI is one. check the back of your head. You'd probably find a thing stuck in the back of there.
I mean,
They were
I mean,
batteries.
Elon Musk did try to get a Neuralink implanted into him, so yeah, that future might not be too far.
No.
But yeah,
I'll be dead before it's here, so hopefully.
yeah. So yeah, that was our episode on movies and the various different media pieces out there for movies, and going down on memory lanes and possibly thinking about the future of like whatever movies are going to come out and things like that. So yeah, I do thank you guys for joining us. You can find other episodes like this one on Spotify and YouTube, and yeah. Daddysquatch, is there any final piece of wisdom you want to impart to the Zoomers?
I'd say usually I kind of go towards the past and say, hey, try this, try that, enjoy it. But unfortunately, this is where technology has advanced, actually made it better than what it was like in the old days. So enjoy it. You get one on me.
Okay, but you're only going to use that technology to listen to high-def versions of Van Halen.
Absolutely.
Alright, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.